Hello and welcome to HypnoHelix. I'm so glad you're here. If you're settling into bed, curling up on the couch, or just trying to wind down after a long day of being a human, you've come to the right place. This is a quiet little corner of the internet where science gets soft-spoken and curiosity puts on pajamas. Tonight, we're diving into the dreamy depths of the mind, exploring what science knows so far about dreams and the sleeping brain. A journey filled with strange stories your mind tells while you're out cold. Brainwaves that look like abstract art, and a few surprises that may just change how you think about sleep. Now, I do hope this video isn't so interesting that it keeps you awake. But hey, if it does, at least you'll be learning something a fair trade, I'd say. Before we begin, if you enjoy these slow science journeys, and you'd like to help this sleepy little channel grow, I'd be ever so grateful if you tapped the like button, subscribed, or even just left a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the night. Alright, take a deep breath, settle in, let's begin our quiet voyage into the theater of the dreaming. Mind on understanding dreams. The experience of dreaming is a fascinating and often mysterious process. At its core, a dream is a collection of thoughts, images, and emotions that your mind generates while you're asleep. They can feel incredibly real, even when the content is bizarre, such as flying or arguing with a talking walrus. Historical and scientific perspectives. Historically, the interpretation of dreams has changed dramatically. Ancient civilizations, like the Mesopotamians and Egyptians, believed dreams were divine messages, and they even had professional dream interpreters. Later, ancient Greek philosophers like Aristotle suggested that dreams originated from within the mind and body of the dreamer, not from external divine sources. In the 19th and 20th centuries, Sigmund Freud popularized the idea that dreams were the royal road to the unconscious, revealing hidden desires and fears. His student, Carl Jung, took a different approach, believing that dreams connected us to a shared collective unconscious through universal symbols. Modern neuroscience, however, takes a more grounded approach, linking dreams to specific brain activity during different sleep stages. The brain and dreams. The most vivid and cinematic dreams typically occur during REM sleep. Rapid eye movement. During this stage, your brain is almost as active as when you're awake. Your eyes dart around, heart rate increases, and your body enters a temporary state of paralysis, which is a protective mechanism to prevent you from acting out your dreams. Dreams can also happen during non-REM sleep, but these are often more abstract and less memorable. Why we dream. Scientists still don't have a definitive answer for why we dream, but there are several leading theories. Memory consolidation. Dreams may help your brain process and consolidate memories from the day. Emotional processing. They can act as a way to work through complex or difficult emotions. Creative outlet. Many artists and inventors have credited dreams with inspiring their work, suggesting dreams are a space where the mind can be wildly creative without the constraints of logic. The content of our dreams often reflects our waking life, a concept known as the continuity hypothesis. So, if you watch a thrilling movie or have a stressful day, those experiences can influence what you dream about. The architecture of sleep isn't just a simple off switch. It's a complex, highly structured process known as sleep architecture. Your brain cycles through different stages throughout the night, with each stage serving a unique purpose. These stages are divided into two main categories: non-REM sleep and REM sleep. Non-REM sleep stages. Stage N1. Light sleep. This is the very beginning of sleep, a twilight zone between being awake and asleep. Your brainwaves begin to slow down, and you might experience sudden muscle jerks or a sensation of falling. Stage N to light sleep. As you sink deeper, your body temperature and heart rate drop. Your brain produces bursts of electrical activity called sleep spindles and K-complexes, which help you stay asleep by blocking out external noise. You spend about half your night in this crucial stage. Stage N3. Deep sleep, also called slow wave sleep. This is the most restorative stage. Your brain produces large, slow delta waves. This is when your body repairs tissues, strengthens the immune system, and releases growth hormones. Waking someone during this stage is very difficult, and they will likely feel groggy and disoriented. The REM sleep stage. REM sleep is the final stage of the sleep cycle, and is where the majority of your vivid dreams occur. Your brain becomes highly active, but your body is temporarily paralyzed. Each REM phase gets progressively longer as the night goes on, which is why your dreams often feel longer and more intense just before you wake up. The sleep cycle. A full sleep cycle from N1 through REM and back again, lasts about 90 minutes. You typically repeat this cycle 4 to 6 times a night. Early in the night, your brain prioritizes deep sleep for physical restoration. As the night progresses, you spend more time in REM sleep for emotional and cognitive processing. Understanding this sleep architecture is important because when it's disrupted by factors like stress, caffeine, or screen time, you may not get enough deep sleep or REM sleep, which can leave you feeling unrefreshed. Why we dream. The brain's nightly performance dreams are one of the last great mysteries of the human experience. Despite centuries of pondering and modern scientific inquiry, we still don't know for certain why we dream. It's a nightly detour into stories our brains insist on telling without scripts, logic, or even basic continuity. One moment you're back in school, the next you're being chased through a supermarket by a giant duck wearing roller skates. Why? What purpose could that possibly serve? Many scientists believe dreams are linked to memory. During the day, your brain collects an avalanche of information, faces, facts, conversations, disappointments, lunch menus, and stray TikTok jingles. At night, it needs to sort through all that mental clutter. According to the memory consolidation theory, dreams are part of this cleanup job, a kind of mental filing system. Your brain decides what to keep, what to toss, and what to send to that mysterious place where lost socks and forgotten passwords go. Interestingly, students who study intensely or learn a new skill tend to have more REM sleep afterward and sometimes even dream about what they've been studying. So yes, technically, cramming in your sleep is real, though your dream self might confuse calculus with cartoon animals. Another possibility is that dreams help us process emotions. During REM sleep, the brain behaves in a fascinating way. Emotional centers like the amygdala light up while stress-related chemicals simmer down. This combination allows your mind to revisit emotionally charged memories without the full weight of panic or fear. It's like having a therapist in your head who's willing to roleplay your awkward interactions, but with more surreal scenery. That dream you had where you were calmly arguing with your ex on top of a slow-moving elephant. That might have been your brain's way of saying, "Hey, I'm working through it." There's also the idea that dreams are a kind of threat simulator. According to this theory, dreaming is our evolutionary brain's way of preparing us for real-life dangers by running through imaginary scenarios. Being chased, lost, attacked, or late for a test you didn't study for, in a class you never attend. Your brain practices how it might respond to high-stakes situations. It's rehearsal, essentially, slightly unhinged, wildly exaggerated rehearsal. People who grow up in more dangerous environments often have more frequent vivid dreams, as if their minds are staying on high alert even during sleep. So, when your dream drops you into a collapsing building while trying to recite the alphabet backward, it may just be your primal instincts doing a late-night fire drill. Not all theories are emotional or evolutionary. One of the more mechanical explanations is something called the activation synthesis hypothesis. This view holds that dreams are basically the result of random electrical impulses in the brainstem during REM sleep. These impulses trigger images, memories, and feelings, and your cerebral cortex, the brain's storyteller-in-chief, tries to piece it all together into something coherent. It doesn't always succeed, hence the talking ducks and the sudden appearance of your third-grade teacher on a pirate ship. Dreams, in this view, aren't purposeful narratives. They're your brain making the best of a very strange and spontaneous situation. There's also the theory that dreaming helps with cognitive development, particularly in children. Kids dream a lot more than adults, and their dreams are often more imaginative and bizarre. Talking animals, magical powers, flying, transforming, building strange new worlds. It's like a Pixar movie every night. Some researchers believe this imaginative dream activity helps the developing brain stretch its problem-solving muscles and emotional awareness. So, when your child tells you they fought a dragon made of spaghetti to rescue a cloud, they're not just being silly. They're growing new pathways in their mind. Even for adults, dreaming may play a role in creativity and problems. Have you ever gone to bed, stuck on a problem, and woken up with a sudden, elegant solution? That's not magic. That's your brain quietly working the night shift, free from distractions and logic. Famous examples include Paul McCartney dreaming up the melody to Yesterday, and the chemist August Kekulé dreaming of a snake biting its own tail, leading him to the structure of the benzene molecule. Dreams let the mind wander down paths it might never consider when fully awake. They free us from rules, and sometimes that freedom leads to insight. And yet, despite all these theories, emotional processing, memory sorting, threat rehearsal, Dream synthesis. Problem solving. No single explanation has won the day. It's very likely that dreaming serves multiple purposes all at once. Like a late-night variety show where your brain juggles cleaning house, solving puzzles, rehearsing survival scenarios, and throwing in the occasional musical number just for fun. That's the strange beauty of dreaming. It's not tidy, it's not always rational, but it's undeniably human. Every night, your brain spins stories for an audience of one, stories you rarely remember, but that somehow shape your emotions, your memories, and maybe even your imagination. The brain's dream team. Have you ever wondered what part of your brain is responsible for that dream, where you were trying to take an exam in a swimming pool filled with marshmallows? Or why your dreams are sometimes filled with intense emotion, while other times they feel like barely coherent montages of leftover thoughts? The answer lies not in just one part of the brain, but in a delicate nocturnal dance among several regions, each with its own role to play in the theater of the dreaming mind. Let's start with the prefrontal cortex. By day, it's the responsible adult in the room, the logical thinker, the planner, the internal voice that says, maybe don't send that email, in all caps. It's heavily involved in decision-making, rational thought, and impulse control. But when you fall asleep, especially during REM sleep, this part of your brain takes a little nap of its own. It quiets down, steps aside, and lets the rest of the brain take the stage. The result? Dreams that are illogical, boundary-pushing, and often completely bonkers. Without the prefrontal cortex overseeing things, the brain is free to combine ideas and images in the most unfiltered, uninhibited way possible. It's like your inner editor has left the room, and now the art department is running wild. Meanwhile, other areas are lighting up with activity. The amygdala, for example, becomes particularly active during REM sleep. This almond-shaped little region deep in the brain is responsible for processing emotions, especially fear, anger, and pleasure. So when you find yourself trapped in a dream, where you're being chased through an airport by someone dressed as your childhood pet, you can thank your amygdala for dialing up the emotional intensity. It's the part of the brain that makes dreams feel important, even when the plot makes zero sense. And because your brain's stress response systems are dialed down during REM, you can re-experience intense emotions in a relatively low-stakes environment. In other words, you might feel afraid or thrilled in a dream, but without the heart-racing panic of real danger. Then there's the hippocampus, your brain's librarian, responsible for creating and organizing memories. It's closely linked with dreaming too, especially when dreams incorporate real places or familiar faces. The hippocampus helps retrieve the raw materials your dreams use. The restaurant you passed earlier in the day, the song that got stuck in your head, your second-grade teacher, who inexplicably reappears in a dream as a karate champion. But the hippocampus isn't fully online during REM sleep, which may be why dream memories tend to be disjointed and hard to recall. You might remember the mood of the dream or a particular image, but often the details slip away the moment you wake up. The filing cabinet is open, but the lights are dim. Another intriguing player is the occipital lobe, located at the back of the brain, your primary visual processing center. During REM sleep, the occipital lobe shows significant activity, which makes perfect sense given how visual dreams often are. Even people who are born blind report vivid sensory dreams, often focusing on sound, touch, and spatial awareness. For the rest of us, dreams are like mini-movies, full of shifting landscapes, strange lighting, and unexpected camera angles. It's your brain's very own film studio, operating entirely without eyes. And then we have something called PGO waves, short for pontogenicular occipital waves. These bursts of neural activity originate in the pons part of the brainstem, then move through the lateral geniculate nucleus involved in visual processing, and finally reach the occipital cortex. It's believed that PGO waves play a key role in initiating REM sleep, and perhaps even in the formation of dream imagery. Some researchers think of them as the opening act of the dream sequence, like someone dimming the lights and drawing the curtain back before the performance begins. One of the most fascinating things about dreaming is how the brain manages to become both highly active and strangely disconnected at the same time. During REM, there's a noticeable decrease in the activity of the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the part that helps us recognize reality and make judgments. This helps explain why your dream self thinks it's totally reasonable to be having a tea party on the moon with a flamingo named Steve. Without the usual systems of logic and realism in place, the dream world becomes wonderfully, or sometimes alarmingly, fluid. It's also worth noting that your motor cortex, the part of your brain That controls movement is active during dreaming too. Your dream self can run, dance, fly, or flail wildly. But your body doesn't actually move because another part of your brain, stem, is doing something very helpful, temporarily paralyzing your muscles. This phenomenon is called REM atonia, and it's what keeps you from acting out your dreams in real life. It's like the brain puts a little "do not disturb" sign on your muscles while your dream self explores a world that defies the laws of physics. There are rare cases where this muscle paralysis doesn't function correctly, a condition called REM sleep behavior disorder. People with this condition might physically act out their dreams, sometimes leading to injury. It's a reminder of just how much the brain is juggling while we're asleep, and how precise the orchestration needs to be to keep the show running smoothly without causing chaos in the real world. So, when you lie down to sleep, it's not just a passive state. Deep inside your brain, an entire cast of characters is preparing for a nocturnal performance. The emotion-laden amygdala, the memory-sorting hippocampus, the visual processing occipital lobe, the quieted-down prefrontal cortex, and the motor control center all take part in this strange, fleeting phenomenon we call dreaming. And perhaps the most curious part of all, you, the dreamer, rarely remember the whole show. And you rarely remember the whole show. You might wake up with a fragment, a feeling, a fleeting image. But behind that tiny sliver of recall was a full-on brain production, rich with emotional color and strange architecture, all stitched together by neurons in the dark. Next time you find yourself in a dream, whether you're flying over cities, having tea with historical figures, or just wandering through a slightly distorted version of your local grocery store, take a moment to marvel. Even if the story makes no sense, the fact that your brain can create a story while unconscious is one of the most mysterious and magnificent things it does. Lucid dreaming. Waking up inside the dream. Imagine you're dreaming you're walking through a vast library made entirely of marshmallows. The librarian is a talking raccoon in spectacles. Everything feels real. Then, suddenly, a quiet thought drifts through your mind. Wait a minute, this is a dream. And just like that, the whole dream shifts. You're aware. You're lucid. Dreaming is one of the most fascinating quirks of human consciousness. It's that moment in a dream when you realize you're dreaming, and sometimes you can even control what happens next. Scientists define lucid dreaming as a hybrid state of consciousness, a blend of waking awareness and REM sleep. In this state, the dreamer maintains metacognition, or self-awareness, while the brain remains immersed in the immersive world of REM-generated imagery. In simpler terms, your brain is asleep, but a part of you has woken up just enough to realize, this is all in my head. What's going on in the brain when this happens? Well, normally, during REM sleep, the prefrontal cortex, the logical desk. Now, some people stumble into lucid dreams accidentally. They might be in the middle of a particularly strange or vivid dream and suddenly think, this can't be real, and boom, lucidity dawns. But others actively train themselves to lucid dream. There are a few popular techniques for this. One is the mild technique mnemonic induction of lucid dreams. This involves waking up after about 5 hours of sleep, focusing on the intention to realize you're dreaming, and repeating a phrase like, next time I'm dreaming, I will remember I'm dreaming, as you drift back to sleep. It's like planting a seed of awareness and hoping it blooms while you dream. Then there's the wild technique, wake-initiated lucid dreaming. This is a bit more advanced. The goal is to stay mentally aware while your body falls asleep. If done successfully, you can transition directly from wakefulness into a lucid dream, almost like walking into a different room in your mind. Not easy, and it can lead to some odd sensations like sleep paralysis or hypnagogic hallucinations. But for some dreamers, it's a powerful gateway into full control. Another common practice is the reality check. This involves questioning your environment throughout the day. Am I dreaming? By doing this habitually, you increase the chances that you'll ask the same question while dreaming and realize the answer. Some people try to push a finger through their palm or look at a clock twice to see if it changes. These reality tests often fail in dreams in obvious telltale ways. If you can push your hand through a wall or read a sentence twice and get two different meanings, chances are you're dreaming. So, what's the appeal of lucid dreaming? For some, it's simply fun, a chance to explore fantastical worlds, fly, breathe underwater, or visit impossible places. For others, it's therapeutic. People who suffer from chronic nightmares, especially those linked to PTSD, have used lucid dreaming to confront and alter their dreams. Imagine being able to turn and face the monster in your recurring nightmare and say, "You're not real, and this is my dream. For some, that moment of control can be deeply healing. Lucid dreaming is also a playground for creativity. Artists, writers, musicians, and even scientists have explored ideas within lucid dreams. Salvador Dali famously used a form of dream interruption to mine his subconscious for surreal imagery. Filmmaker Christopher Nolan even cited lucid dreaming as an influence on Inception, which makes perfect sense when you think about it. Still, despite the excitement, lucid dreaming isn't something everyone experiences easily. Some people can learn it with practice, while others may go their whole lives without ever realizing they're dreaming. Like trying to remember your dreams in the first place, it varies from person to person. Even frequent lucid dreamers often report that their level of control fluctuates. Sometimes they can shape the dream like clay. Other times they're just slightly more aware while riding the wave. There are also a few caveats, because lucid dreaming exists at the crossroads between sleep and waking. Too much deliberate practice, especially techniques that interrupt sleep cycles, can reduce sleep quality. Like anything else, it's all about balance. Exploring your dreams should enhance your rest, not disrupt it. Think of it as visiting a dream garden. A beautiful place to explore, but one you don't need to tend obsessively every night. Ultimately, lucid dreaming is one of those marvels of the human mind that reminds us just how flexible, strange, and mysterious our consciousness really is. The very fact that the brain can become aware of itself while it's dreaming is an astonishing feat of neural gymnastics. And next time you're dreaming, perhaps floating through a sky of shifting colors, or exploring a castle made of glass, who knows? A quiet voice in the back of your mind might whisper, "This isn't real," and you might just smile and take flight. Nightmares, night terrors, and sleep paralysis. The dark side of sleep. Everyone loves a good dream. But not all dreams are made of marshmallows and whimsy. Sometimes your sleeping mind turns the lights down, turns the volume up, and delivers something far less comforting. A nightmare. Nightmares are the emotional thunderstorms of our dream life. They jolt us awake, leave our hearts racing, and often stick around like a fog long after morning comes. But what actually causes a nightmare? And why does your brain seem to go out of its way to frighten you? A nightmare is a vivid, disturbing dream that typically occurs during REM sleep, the same stage responsible for most of your cinematic, story-like dreams. The big difference is emotional tone. While a typical REM dream might be bizarre or confusing, a nightmare ramps up the intensity, often triggering fear, anxiety, sadness, or shame. Most people experience nightmares from time to time, and they're perfectly normal. But when they become frequent or recurring, it's known as nightmare disorder, which is common in people with high stress, anxiety, or trauma histories. There's a strong link between nightmares and real-life emotional experiences. Some researchers believe that nightmares serve a similar purpose to regular dreams, helping the brain process difficult emotions. But they do so with a kind of high intensity. Think of it like your mind running simulations of worst-case scenarios, trying to prepare you emotionally for danger or distress. In this sense, nightmares might actually be protective, a psychological fire drill. For people recovering from trauma, nightmares often replay the event itself, whether literally or symbolically. This is especially true for those with PTSD. Treatments like imagery rehearsal therapy help by having the person mentally rewrite the nightmare to a less frightening version, which can reduce the frequency and intensity over time. But not all scary sleep experiences are nightmares. There's another less-known category, night terrors. Night terrors, also called sleep terrors, are a different beast altogether. They usually occur during non-REM deep sleep, particularly in the early part of the night. Unlike nightmares, which are vivid and dreamlike, night terrors are more like sudden panic storms. A person might sit bolt upright, scream, thrash, or appear wide-eyed with fear, but they're not fully awake. They'll often have no memory of the event the next morning. Night terrors are much more common in children than adults, and most kids eventually outgrow them. They're not technically dreams at all, but rather a misfire between sleep states. Then there's the eerie cousin of nightmares and night terrors, sleep paralysis. This happens when your mind wakes up before your body does. You're conscious, but you can't move. This state is often accompanied by hallucinations, shadows in the room, pressure on the chest, strange sounds. Historically, these episodes were blamed on demons, but today we know it's a natural glitch in the REM sleep system where the muscle paralysis meant to protect you during dreams lingers a little too long after waking. Despite the terrifying sensation, sleep paralysis is harmless and usually passes within seconds or minutes. Why does the brain have such a talent for scaring itself? One theory is that negative emotions are simply more memorable, and evolution has a stake in remembering potential dangers. You're far more likely to remember a dream about escaping a forest fire than one about eating a nice sandwich. The emotional charge helps cement the dream in your memory and makes you more likely to learn from it. Dreams and mental health. We often think of sleep as a time to rest and recharge. But your dreams don't always get the memo. They don't politely ask if now's a good time to unpack unresolved emotions. They just barge in, wearing symbolic disguises, rearranging your memories, and occasionally throwing in a nonsensical subplot involving cats and elevators. It turns out, dreams and mental health are closely linked, like two dancers moving through the night. Each influences the other, often in subtle, unexpected ways. Sometimes dreams reflect our emotional state. Other times they amplify it, and in some cases, they might even be trying to help us heal. Let's start with the obvious. When you're stressed, anxious, or emotionally overwhelmed, your dreams tend to get louder in content. They become more vivid, more emotional, sometimes more chaotic. You might dream about being chased, lost, unprepared, or frozen in place. These dreams can mirror the emotional turbulence in your waking life, like an abstract art version of your inner state. More negative dream content. Their dreams may feel heavy, repetitive, or emotionally flat, mirroring the numbness or sadness they experience while awake. Anxiety disorders, on the other hand, tend to show up as dreams filled with threat, pressure, or social embarrassment, like giving a speech with no pants, or trying to dial a phone number that never works. But the connection runs deeper than just content. The structure of dreams, how fragmented or coherent they are, can also shift with mental health. People going through intense stress or psychological trauma often experience more fragmented, jarring dreams. It's as if the brain is trying to process too much too quickly, without enough glue to hold the pieces together. The result is a kind of dream chaos, full of emotional weight but lacking narrative clarity. This is particularly true in post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Nightmares are one of the hallmark symptoms. These aren't just bad dreams. They're often reliving the traumatic event itself, over and over. While REM sleep is usually a helpful, adaptive space for emotional processing, in PTSD, that system seems to break down. Instead of soothing the wound, the dream repeats it like a stuck record. Interestingly, not all REM is equal. Signs of depression or anxiety based on dream descriptions. Though, let's be honest, explaining a dream about flying broccoli to a robot may always feel slightly absurd. What's clear, though, is that dreams are deeply personal. They can reveal emotional truths we haven't said out loud. They can reflect our hopes, our fears, and the tangled middle ground where those two live side by side. And sometimes, when the world feels overwhelming, dreams can offer a kind of symbolic relief, giving shape to things we haven't yet found words for. There's even evidence that dreams might be helpful in problem-solving and emotional growth. In therapy, clients will sometimes dream about difficult decisions or unresolved feelings. And while the dream doesn't hand them a perfectly wrapped answer, it often nudges them closer to clarity. It's the brain's way of quietly saying, "You're working on this," even if you don't realize it. Of course, not all dreams are so profound. Some are just weird, disjointed, or clearly inspired by too much late-night snacking. And that's okay, too. Not every dream needs to be meaningful. Sometimes a floating platypus in a bow tie is just a floating platypus in a bow tie. But when dreams do stir something deeper, when they echo the stress you've been ignoring or surface a fear you haven't quite faced, it's worth pausing to notice. Not overanalyze, not panic, just notice. Because your dreaming mind isn't separate from you. It's part of you, a nighttime version of yourself, trying in its own strange language to be understood. So, if you're going through a hard time, and your dreams are darker, stranger, or more intense, be gentle with yourself. Your mind is still processing, still working, even in the dark. And if your dreams are softer, kinder, or quietly hopeful, hold on to that too. Sometimes the subconscious leads us toward healing before we're even awake enough to see it. In the end, dreams are not just mental noise. They're part of the conversation, the ongoing dialogue between your brain, your body, and your heart. And like all good conversations, sometimes the most important parts happen late at night, when everything else is still. Do animals dream? A look into the sleeping. You've probably seen it before. A dog sleeping soundly on the floor, paws twitching, tail flicking, maybe even letting out a muffled bark or two. Or a cat stretched out on a windowsill, whiskers twitching, legs paddling as if it's chasing something in its sleep. If you've ever wondered whether animals dream, the answer is probably yes. Of course, they can't tell us about it. No golden retriever has sat down to describe their dream about a field of flying tennis balls. But science has given us a few clues, and the evidence is pretty convincing. Let's start with the basics. Almost all mammals and many birds experience REM sleep, the same phase of sleep in which humans do most of their dreaming. In animals, this looks very familiar. You'll often see the twitching, the flickering eyes, the occasional sleep bark or meow. It's like a silent movie playing behind their eyelids. But brain scans offer even stronger evidence. In a now famous study at MIT, researchers trained rats to run through a maze while their brain activity was recorded. Specific patterns of neurons would fire as the rats moved through the maze, sort of like a song their brains played while solving the puzzle. Later, while the rats slept, researchers observed those exact same neural patterns replaying during REM sleep. It was as if the rats were dreaming about the maze, running it again in their minds, perhaps reinforcing the memory, or mentally practicing for the next day's challenge. The same song was playing, only now the lights were off. Birds, too, show signs of dreaming. Zebra finches, for example, have been studied for their complex singing behavior. When they sleep, their brains replay the neural patterns used in singing, almost as if they're rehearsing their songs while unconscious. Dream karaoke, if you will. Recent studies even suggest that some reptiles might have a kind of dreamlike sleep. So, what are animals actually dreaming about? That's the big mystery. While we can observe neural patterns and behaviors, we can't ask a cat, "Did you dream about hunting?" But we can make some reasonable guesses. Animals probably dream about things that matter to them: navigating their territory, social bonding, hunting, playing, eating. The content may not be symbolic or metaphorical, like human dreams sometimes are, but they're likely grounded in experience. In this way, dreaming might serve similar functions across species: memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and behavioral rehearsal. For a mouse, dreaming might reinforce how to find its way through a maze. For a dog, it might be a replay of a walk in the park or a bark-off with the neighbor's poodle. There's even some evidence that animals can experience nightmares. Lab rats exposed to stress show different patterns of REM sleep, sometimes fragmented, sometimes more intense. This suggests that, just like us, animals use dreams to process difficult or frightening experiences. And what about our pets? Researchers believe that dogs in particular have vivid dreams. It's very likely that your dog dreams about you, their human companion, because you're such a central part of their life. Cats are a bit more mysterious, of course, but they dream too. In fact, studies on cats in the 1960s helped scientists first understand the connection between REM sleep and dreaming. When researchers temporarily disabled the part of the brain that causes REM paralysis, cats would act out their dreams, stalking, pouncing, even grooming, all while fast asleep. It was the first real demonstration that animals don't just sleep, they live whole stories in their minds while doing so. Dreaming in animals also raises fascinating philosophical questions. If a rat dreams, does it have a sense of self in that dream? Do animals distinguish between the real and the imagined? Maybe, just maybe, dreaming is one of those universal brain languages, a way for all creatures great and small to replay, remember, and reflect. Dream recording, reading the dreaming mind. For most of human history, dreams have been private, a world seen by one person alone. But now, scientists are picking at the lock. Welcome to the strange and slightly sci-fi frontier of dream recording, where neuroscience, technology, and a touch of wonder collide in an attempt to do what once seemed impossible. Read the dreaming mind. It starts with machines and squiggly lines. Researchers have long used EEG, electroencephalography, to monitor brainwaves during sleep. EEG is great for tracking the different stages of sleep, but it doesn't tell you what someone is dreaming about. For that, you need a more detailed picture. That's where fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, comes in. It lets scientists see which parts of the brain are active and when. One of the most fascinating experiments in this area happened in Japan, at the ATR Computational Neuroscience Laboratories. Researchers had participants fall asleep inside an fMRI machine. When the participants entered a light stage of sleep just before REM, the researchers would gently wake them and ask them to describe what they had been seeing, even if it was just a fleeting image. They did this hundreds of times, collecting a massive amount of data. Then, they took those verbal descriptions and paired them with the corresponding fMRI brain activity. For example, If someone reported seeing a car, the researchers would link the brain activity at that moment to the concept of a car. They also used a large database of images and their corresponding brain patterns from people who were awake. The researchers would compare them to the waking data, and it worked. With about 60% accuracy, the team could guess what kind of image the person was dreaming about, whether it involved a person, a book, a car, or a tree. They couldn't describe the dream's plot or emotions, but they could identify what was being visualized. It was the first real peek behind the curtain of a sleeping mind. Now, 60% might not sound like a lot, but considering we're talking about guessing thoughts from neural patterns in a sleeping brain, it's remarkable. It was like watching someone's dreams from the outside, albeit in low resolution and without sound. Other experiments have gone further. At the University of California, researchers developed a model to reconstruct what people were seeing while awake using fMRI data to recreate rough images from brain activity. The reconstructions were fuzzy and surreal, like impressionist paintings from the subconscious, but they offered a glimpse of the possibilities ahead. So, can we watch someone's dream on a screen? Not quite, but the groundwork is there. Scientists can identify certain categories of content, track emotional tone based on which brain regions light up, and in some cases, even detect specific objects or shapes. The technology is limited, but improving. With advances in AI and neural decoding, dream reading might become sharper, faster, and more accurate in the years to come. Of course, this raises some very big and very ethical questions. Dreams are private by nature. They're one of the last unfiltered expressions of the self, a space where no one else can follow. So if the day comes when we can record or decode dreams with precision, what happens to that privacy? Will we need dream passwords? Will there be legal protections for the content of our subconscious? These questions are no longer purely hypothetical. As neurotechnology advances, ethicists and lawmakers are already discussing the need for what's being called neuro rights, basic protections for mental privacy, freedom of thought, and the sanctity of the self. Because while it might be fun to imagine sharing your dreams like YouTube videos, of course, dreams are still far too complex to decode in full. They're messy, layered, emotionally charged, and often absurd. Even the dreamer struggles to make sense of them, let alone someone trying to read them secondhand. But we're getting closer to understanding how the brain builds these inner worlds, and maybe, just maybe, closer to bringing them into the light. So tonight, as you settle into bed, take a moment to appreciate the quiet mystery behind your eyelids. Your brain is about to dive into a world of its own making, unrecorded, unfiltered, and uniquely yours. For now, no machine can follow you there, and maybe that's a good thing. Because even in an age of data and decoding, there's something lovely about the idea that some stories remain secret whispers in a locked room, painted in the dark. The future of dream science. We've wandered through the landscapes of the dreaming mind, from twitching lab rats and philosophical speculations to REM sleep, memory repair, and barking dogs in their sleep. But before we drift toward the end of this quiet journey, there's one last question worth asking. Where is all this going? The truth is, we're on the edge of something remarkable. For the first time in human history, our tools are catching up to our questions. Technology, neuroscience, and even artificial intelligence are combining in strange and beautiful ways, offering not just glimpses into the dreaming mind, but the potential to shape it, enhance it, and maybe even share it. For starters, the field of targeted dream incubation, yes, that's a real term, is growing rapidly. The idea is simple. If you give the brain a gentle nudge before or during sleep, you might be able to influence the content of dreams. Not control them completely, of course, but steer them like a canoe on a quiet river. Experiments have already shown that playing specific sounds or words during certain stages of sleep can trigger related dream imagery. People exposed to the scent of roses while sleeping, for instance, are more likely to report pleasant dreams. People who hear a voice saying tree might dream of a forest. Subtle cues, carefully timed, can shift the content of a dream without fully waking the sleeper. It's not mind control. It's more like mental gardening, planting a seed and seeing what grows. Now imagine combining that with wearable sleep tech headbands that monitor your brainwaves, or earbuds that deliver cues only during REM. One day, guide your dreams to help solve problems, rehearse speeches, or gently work through emotional blocks. And speaking of fiction, let's talk about dream sharing. It's one of the oldest fantasies we have. The idea that two people could experience the same dream, or that we could record and play back a dream like a movie. We're nowhere near that yet, but as we discussed earlier, researchers are starting to decode visual dream content using fMRI and machine learning. It's still fuzzy and vague, like watching dreams through frosted glass, but the door has been cracked open. In the future, it's possible we'll be able to turn those dream fragments into rough images, maybe even animations. You could watch a version of your own dream the next morning or share a surreal dream memory with a friend. But even as we peer ahead, there are ethical questions blinking gently in the background. If we can guide dreams, can they be manipulated? If we can read them, could they be misused? What happens when the line between sleep and technology becomes blurry? This is why the idea of neuro rights has started to enter the conversation, rights to protect mental privacy, autonomy, and the freedom of thought. Because if dreams are the last uncolonized corner of the mind, we should tread carefully, gently, like walking through a sacred space in someone else's house. There are also possibilities for healing. Imagine a future where people with PTSD receive personalized dream therapy using sound cues or gentle neural stimulation to help reprocess traumatic memories in a safer way. Or where children with anxiety are taught how to shape their dreams through guided storylines, turning fears into adventures. Lucid dreaming, too, could have a renaissance. Not as an escape, but as a tool for emotional growth, creativity, even learning. Some researchers are exploring how lucid dreamers can practice real-life skills in their dreams, like playing an instrument or preparing for a difficult conversation. The brain, after all, doesn't fully distinguish between imagined action and physical rehearsal. If your dream self practices kindness, courage, or compassion, perhaps your waking self benefits too. And then there's AI. Artificial intelligence is being trained not just to analyze brain activity, but to recognize patterns, suggest dream themes, and even build dream narratives, interactive environments that mimic the feel of dreams. Some virtual reality developers are experimenting with dream-inspired environments that respond to emotion spaces that feel less like games and more like lucid dreams you can explore while awake. It's wild, it's a little strange, and it's just beginning. But for all this dazzling technology, there's something quietly reassuring to remember. Dreaming at its core doesn't require gadgets. You don't need an app, a headband, or a lab. Your brain already has everything it needs to dream, to remember, to process, to create, to wonder. All you need is sleep and perhaps a little curiosity. Because dreams remind us that the mind is not a machine. It's a storyteller, a traveler, a soft projector in the dark, replaying old scenes and improvising new ones, sometimes clumsy, sometimes profound, always personal. The future of dream science may bring new tools, new therapies, and new ways to connect. But it will never fully replace the simple wonder of waking up with a strange image in your head, blinking in the early light, and thinking, where did that come from? And maybe that's the heart of it. No matter how far science takes us, dreams will always retain a little mystery, a little poetry, a space where the brain stretches out, curls into itself, and drifts somewhere only it knows how to. So, sleep deeply tonight, dream freely, and know that while science watches from the edge, your mind is still quietly writing its own stories. Night after night, behind closed eyes, in the oldest language it knows. And so here we are, gently gliding back from the strange, beautiful world of dreams. We've tiptoed through REM cycles, wandered the halls of memory, listened to the whispering amygdala, and even peeked, just a little, into the future of dream science. We've seen that dreams aren't just nighttime noise. They're stories your brain tells itself, sometimes clumsy, sometimes profound, always intimate. What we know so far is astonishing, but what we don't know may be even more wondrous. Because for all the brain scans and neural maps, dreams still slip through the cracks of explanation. They remain, in many ways, the mind's poetry, part science, part soul. So as you drift off tonight, whether your brain takes you on an epic adventure, a quiet memory, or something so bizarre it defies all logic, let it. You don't need to understand every detail. You just need to let go. Your brain knows what it's doing. And if this video has made you just a little too fascinated to fall asleep, well, I apologize. But at least you might have learned something along the way. A fair trade, I hope. Before we part ways, if you enjoyed this slow journey through the sleeping brain, I'd be truly grateful if you gave the video a gentle thumbs up, subscribed to HypnoHelix, or left a comment below. Where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it in your corner of the world? I'd love to know where this little cloud of calm has drifted. Until next time, sleep well, dream freely, and remember, your mind is still writing stories, even in the dark. And so, here we are, gently gliding back from the strange, beautiful world of dreams. We've tiptoed through REM cycles, wandered the halls of memory, listened to the whispering amygdala, and even peeked, just a little, into the future of dream science. We've seen that dreams aren't just nighttime noise. They're stories your brain tells itself, sometimes clumsy, sometimes profound, always intimate. What we know so far is astonishing, but what we don't know may be even more wondrous. Because for all the brain scans and neural maps, dreams still slip through the cracks of explanation. They remain, in many ways, the mind's poetry, part science, part soul. So, as you drift off tonight, whether your brain takes you on an epic adventure, a quiet memory, or something so bizarre it defies all logic, let it. You don't need to understand every detail. You just need to let go. Your brain knows what it's doing. And if this video has made you just a little too fascinated to fall asleep, well, I apologize. But at least you might have learned something along the way. A fair trade, I hope. Before we part ways, if you enjoyed this slow journey through the sleeping brain, I'd be truly grateful if you gave the video a gentle thumbs up, subscribed to HypnoHelix, or left a comment below. Where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it in your corner of the world? I'd love to know where this little cloud of calm has drifted. Until next time, sleep well, dream freely, and remember, your mind is still writing stories, even in the dark. Good night.